Welcome, Mandy.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's
Lovely
my
to meet you.
pleasure to meet you too. It's absolutely, your story is mind blowing. And, there's a lot of people who probably would have given up or at least been quite cranky or at least resigned to the fact that this is my life and it's not going to be the same anymore. It's no good anymore. And you've really sort of, and I know there's been a lot of challenges, as we've said in the intro, but somehow you've managed to come out the other side and you're extraordinarily impressive, but your resilience is is remarkable. So it's my honor to have you on here today. Absolute honor.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
That you're a bilateral amputee, and for people who don't might not know what that means, it means both of your legs have been amputated, which is a lot of people struggle with just one, but you've got two, and that means an entirely new life. But how? I hope you don't mind us asking this, but how and when did you become an amputee?
I became an amputee in July of 2014. I was 21 years old and went out with some people that I thought I could trust. And about 2:30 in the morning, I was struck by a locomotive in Steel City, Nebraska. So the um, the train conductor was allowed to release his statement to us a few months later, and that's when he had said that he was going around the bend at 45, 50 mile an hour, and saw me, thought I was a mannequin. And I guess that's a prank that some people play in rural communities out in Nebraska. And after hitting me, he realized I wasn't a mannequin and slammed on the brakes. And as he was getting down out of the engine house, he said he took 2 steps and turned to go find me. And that's whenever he received a tap on his shoulder. It was my date of that night. And he said, "Hey man, why'd you stop?" And the train conductor said, "I think I hit somebody and I don't have time for this." And that's whenever he turned the flashlight back and saw 2 or 3 people cross the tracks about 200 yards down. And that's about the time my date said, "I hope it's not Mandy." Um, the same individual ended up passing away in November of that year as my mother and I were trying to open up court investigation into the events of that night because we were being told one thing and the police were being told another. But didn't happen for whatever reason. It's been almost 8 years now, and I still have never seen a police report of this event. It was very shoved under the rug. And so from that and a mass array of other tidbits that I've grown to learn in the last 8 years, it's suspected that I was incapacitated by a date rape drug.
Wow.
I only have recollection of stepping outside of the bar after having 2 beers and 2 shots, and I just stepped out for a smoke and the world went black. I awoke in an ambulance and somebody was slapping my face as hard as they could. And I tried to sit up from the gurney. I was still in shock and didn't realize what had happened. I was pushed back down, continually slapped. Tried to get up once more, and I was shoved back down again on what I now know is the gurney, right? And they started strapping the cervical collar around me and fastening my top half to the gurney. But they hadn't yet gotten to my lower half of my body, and I was rather stubborn. And so, like a child throwing a temper tantrum, still in shock. Mm. This guy, he said, "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. You've just lost your limbs." And it was at that point I kicked my legs in the air and I realized how light it was and the blood. So I spent a good better portion of a couple of years in the hospital, through recovery and everything else. And it was very rough. It was very rough.
Mm. Wow. And it's and when you're talking about a date rape drug and stuff like that, I think that it's people talk about that, but I don't think they estimate that something so tragic can come of this. I mean, did you think somebody put you there, or you just passed out there? You're not sure.
I don't believe that I passed out there, because if I had passed out there, like, I remember walking outside. I remember standing by what they call one of those big cable spindles.
Mm.
They had one of those sitting outside as like a table, the industrial sized one. So
Yep, yep.
it's huge. And I remember just standing out there by it. And I was found some 400 yards up on the tracks.
Mm.
No. I don't buy it. There's, no. He was a heavy equipment operator, who accidentally asphyxiated in a garage. And so I just, little backwoods town, a lot of things get shoved under the rug. And so that's how it is.
Wow. It's it's hard to imagine that anybody can come through that and one survive. That's the first thing, and how lucky. But secondly, to find some sense of forgiveness. I don't even know if you can forgive. It's kind of, but you have to find
That ship has long sailed. It's long sailed. I wouldn't be living the life that I live today if I hadn't forgiven and let things go, because I really feel like I could keep searching till the end of my life, and I'm never going to truly have an answer.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, I could waste my time on that, or I can waste my time on tailoring my clothes so that I can get to cool places,
Yeah.
it's a choice to move forward.
Wow. I think it's incredibly courageous, but it's also incredibly tragic. But I agree with you. If you, I don't know that I could forgive. Honestly, I think that would be incredibly hard. But I absolutely understand your point that you can't spend the rest of your life thinking about it. But when you were in hospital, and recovering in those 2 years, was there a point where you thought my life's over? That
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there have been a few times in this journey I've just looked at the walls in front of me and thought, how am I going to scale over this? Just figuring out how to lift myself into my wheelchair at the beginning was very difficult. Learning how to redo everything. Everything. I mean, just to go and use the restroom now in my apartment, which is here in Colorado Springs, I have to lift my body at least 4 times out of the chair, onto the toilet, back down, and into the chair. And so it was learning all of these extra steps to what was a pretty convenient life prior.
Yeah.
It was difficult being taken from the outdoors. It was difficult having my kitchen career just smash into the wall. Along with the forgiveness kind of question that you had there at the beginning, somebody had asked me recently, actually, if somebody could magically reattach my limbs now, I would tell them hell no. I've spent way too long getting accustomed to this life, and all the things that I took for granted before, I appreciate on such a deeper level that I wouldn't change a thing,
Wow.
And even going through the recovery process, even going through the trouble I got into in 2018 with alcoholism, all of that stuff, I wouldn't take it back.
Yeah.
It's taught me a little bit of something about myself that I didn't know that I needed to know,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
You somehow overcame this tragedy. You said, well, this is life, I need to learn it again. And then you did a couple of incredible feats, that where did that determination come from? Like, tell us about those couple of things you did, and tell us, where did you find the drive? Like, what happened there?
Um, so I moved out to Colorado Springs in 2016 from Missouri, which was my home state. And I, by 2018, had gotten a little tired seeing everybody's pictures and not being able to experience it for myself. I was always out in the woods. I was always out in the woods. And the loss of my limbs in 2014 took that from me.
Hmm.
In so many ways. So I just decided to go do it. I made out a huge post over several of my social pages and asked anybody that would listen. I was letting them know that I was going to go do the Manitou Incline, and got a lot of incredulous responses, and most people just ignored it or thought I was bluffing. But on April 23rd of 2018, my good friend Keith, he messaged me in the morning, and Daniel Pond had messaged me not too long after that. He was a random Instagrammer at that time. And they went with me to go do the incline. It took me, I think, 4.5, 5 hours to get it done the first time. The guys carried me down Bar Trail, which was just 3.7 miles, and had a beer and a burger at the townhouse down in Manitou Springs. And I went home, and I remember I didn't even take a shower. I just crawled into bed and went to sleep. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. And the next morning, I had simply just put it online in front of my Instagrammers, and it took off from there. Within 2 weeks, I was approached by every media outlet between here and Denver, wanting an interview on the recent ascent, because I was the first female bilateral above knee amputee to do so in the history of the incline. And so it took off from there. And a month later, I was privileged to have the opportunity to ascend the Bar Trail that leads all the way up to the summit of America's Mountain, which is Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
And that was a 13-mile trail. It was my first mountain. I'm not really sure where that determination comes from, but I'll tell you, one of the greatest moments of my life was getting up to the A-frame on that climb. Of course, I had no idea what I was doing, so I was in jeggings. I had no protection on my lower half. I was literally in jean leggings and deerskin leather gloves, which gave me huge blisters on the palms of my hands and between my fingers. It was dreadful. But we got up to the A-frame, which is a little lean-to shelter about 3 miles from the summit of Pikes Peak. And this beautiful wildflower meadow is up there surrounding this lean-to. And even though I was exhausted and my hands hurt, I was crawling through the wildflowers, trying to smell them. And it was probably one of those moments that I will, forever have, no matter how lost I get. The point of issues on my previous climbs were on my ischium bones on your rear. It's the two base pelvic bones.
Yeah.
And as that would roll, it would create like abrasions on my rear cheeks.
Oh.
Yeah. But I finally found a pant that works very, very well. Cool brand, Kuhl.
Yeah.
And what I've done is I have taken a silicone pad,
Yep.
encased it in a synthetic fabric, and then swatched it to the lower pant leg fabric piece. And then I sew it onto the pant.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so I've got a nice silicone pad there that will actually be very beneficial, especially lengthwise is more important than width, because as I'm going uphill, my ischiums will rock and roll,
Yeah.
so to say. Yeah, up and down. So that's a nice little bit of cushion in there, and it should stay pretty sturdy. I've gone over that seam like 3 times, so I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm figuring it out, and I like the way that it looks and feels. So if it works, it works.
Going back, we talked about your alcoholism. So you were doing these two amazing things. The first one was just, I'm just doing this for fun, and it sort of kicked you off. And the second one, you started to get a lot more notoriety and cameras following you. But like we said in the intro, when the cameras were off, you were fighting an alcohol addiction, and things weren't going so well. So how much conflict did you have there? Things must have been feeling really awful inside, to be achieving great things, but still feeling like you needed to, I don't know,
Oh,
drown something.
that was dreadful. It was dreadful. I was dealing with alcoholism from the beginning of 2018 heavily. I spent New Year's Day in the hospital down in Orlando, Florida, with one of my friends who woke up without the use of his limbs. Like,
Wow.
that's how my 2018 started. And then I lost 2 grandparents and a couple really close high school friends, and within the same month block. And it just was a spiral. And in addition to that, I flew out to LA and to New York within a week. It was just a lot of compounding events, and I had no time to process my emotions or process the grief that I was experiencing. And it sank me, you know. My first ascent of Pikes Peak, Daniel Pond had to go hang a bear bag of wine just so that I didn't go through withdrawals. I mean, it was a lot bigger issue than I had ever spoken about. And it just got worse from there. And so in August of 2018, I was arrested on DUI, suspicion of DUI charges. And in the midst of that, an AMR paramedic that was trying to help me was harmed by me. And I just, I spent the next 3 or 4 days in CJC, wasn't even on the list for personal recognizance bond. When I did get in front of the judge, she said, "Ms. Horvath, if you're going to kill yourself with your alcoholism, that's one thing, but don't kill anybody else." And he gave me an opportunity to get out. And so within the next 24 hours, I immediately sought medical attention. And that's whenever the story dropped worldwide. It just, I went from hero to literally below zero overnight. And I spent the next 4 days in the hospital. I was told that if I hadn't have checked in that night, that I would have seized out. I was already convulsing. I hadn't had any medical attention. I was in isolation and CJC. So yeah, I was in the hospital for 4 days, and then I got checked into a 30-day inpatient rehab facility, and I completed Parker Valley Hope's 30-day patient program in September of 2018. And I haven't had a drink since that night, August 15th of 2018. So it was pretty dark. I spent from April to August in jail. And a week after getting out of jail, decided to go ahead and go back up Pikes Peak with a fellow bilateral amputee. And so that was my second ascent of Pikes Peak, but I was so ready just to get out of the walls.
So that second, the second ascent of Pikes Peak, where you took the other bilateral guy who was a veteran that you went with,
Yes.
but you went with was it three other guys? I think there was four guys that you went up there with,
Yep.
and what was the purpose of that?
I became affiliated with Cars for Heroes whenever I was 16 years old. And Terry Franz actually donated me my vehicle in 2017
Yeah.
that I ended up taking advantage of that privilege of driving against with the influence,
Yeah.
Anyway, so he had approached me and asked me if I would be interested in starting a Cars for Heroes Colorado. And I said, absolutely, I'll do anything to help the charity out. They've done incredible things for hundreds and hundreds of people here in the United States, and specifically my hometown, Kansas City.
Yeah.
And so we went up this mountain and dedicated the climb to Cars for Heroes. And so we were able to donate a couple vehicles in our community on behalf of Cars for Heroes Colorado.
But you were the first person to get permission to climb the stairs of the Statue of Liberty as well, and that was associated with the Cars for Heroes as well, wasn't it? Was that?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
A month later, in September of 2018, I was granted permissions to go and crawl up the stairwell to the crown of Our Lady in the Harbor. That was an incredible experience in and of itself. My teammate Nicholas Hallisey went out there with me, and we were put on the staff ferry on the way over to the island. So it was largely shut down for these 3 hours. That's
Wow.
how long we had estimated it might take me, but it ended up taking me 7 minutes because I could just barely fit on this step there. And once I got a rhythm, it was quite all right. So my next one is taking me overseas, and this is coming up in less than 10 days now. That's why I'm tailoring my gear like a madman over here.
Awesome.
But I'll be traveling over to Tanzania to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So
Wow.
that's been a goal and dream of mine for the last several years, and I am very excited. Growing up, we only had like the Kansas City Zoo and of course television. And so like most 90s kids, I'm sure can probably relate. We grew up watching Steve Irwin.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to get to go over there and help out with the same conservation programs that he did.
Yeah.
It's like it's a kid's dreams come true. Because once Africa's gone, it's gone.
Yep.
And that makes me like, it tears me up because it's like the white rhino, it's gone. And that was in our lifetime.
Yep.
We have a duty to protect these animals. Otherwise our kids won't be able to see it.
Hmm.
And I want my kids to grow up watching the Irwin kids,
Yeah. Do you need a guide? Do you need a special guide to help you? And is that person from
Yes.
Tanzania, or is it,
You do have to get a licensed and specialized guide to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. There are 10 people that die a year on Mount Kilimanjaro, even with this, government regulated kind of, you have to have a guide regulation. And Carol Verahoff and Sally Gregerson, they are going to be my specialized guides over in Tanzania. And I've been working with Carol for a little over a year now. And his wife, Sally, is actually a licensed physiotherapist. And I've been fundraising to get her accompanied on this excursion with me, because I believe that will greatly improve my chances of success. So I trust that no matter what, Carell has my back, and so does Sally, and so does his team of porters, and they know exactly what they're doing. This will be a little different because I'm crawling. And I'm not so much relying on any kind of prosthetic or mobility equipment. Other amputees and disabled individuals have done this in a wheelchair before, but
Wow.
it's not how I roll, pun intended. You know, if there's one thing I could go back and write on a sticky note for myself, you know, I wouldn't change anything, but I would write one thing on a sticky note, and it would say, be kinder to yourself.
Yep. Yep.
I set such high expectations of myself after this amputation that I was the burden of my own depression.
Yep.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
I set this goal that I was going to be up and walking in prosthetics a year after amputation. And so here I was, almost healed, and I had to be re-amputated.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, just unrealistic expectation after unrealistic expectation of myself. And I was brutally mean to myself, more so than anybody could. Even after getting in trouble in 2018, going back and reading all the comments on those news threads and everything else, I was meaner to myself than any of those hateful people could have been. And
wow.
That's the one thing that I would write on a sticky note, is be kinder to yourself. Because if I'd have been just a little nicer to myself, I probably would have exceeded my own expectations.
Wow. Well, I think all of us could write that sticky note, to be honest. I think that it's where none of us are as kind to ourselves as we could be. But I just find it phenomenal. How are you going to make this climb happen? Like, who funds this? Are you doing a fundraiser to get?
I am doing a fundraiser. Yes. Right now I am raising funds on GoFundMe, and because we're coming under the 10-day window, I've started opening up my PayPal link as well. And so my GoFundMe is gofundme.com/f/Mandy H Kilimanjaro.
Yep.
And my PayPal is paypal.me/lifeproof bionic woman.
You've just taken on these challenges that most of us able-bodied people don't freaking do, you know. So I just find that getting off the bench to the nth degree, I find that amazing. Well, what advice would you give to people affected by physical disadvantage to go conquer their life?
Make sure that you sit on the bench a while and discover who you are without expectation. And that will greatly aid you going into the future. Yeah. Before you launch off of that bench, work on that inner part of yourself and finding that without the excess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. That's really good advice. Yeah. Because often we do jump off that bench way too quick, don't we, without having any thought about it. But
yep. Been there, done that, and face planted, got that t-shirt. Hawaii is actually a very special place to me.
Yep.
Because in 2013, the first trip I took on a plane out of landlock, the first time I ever saw an ocean, was landing right there at Oahu. And this was the year before I lost my limbs.
Oh.
And so Hawaii is literally the first and the last place that I ever got to put my toes in the sand. I have a website. It is www.mandyhorvath, H-O-R-V as in Victor, A-T-H.com. You can find me on Instagram at lifeless bionic woman.
It's you're just incredible. And I was just thinking before, you know, when because of your accident, you trusted people and they let you down. And now, you know, you're doing these climbs and everything. And it's ironic because you have to put 100% trust in other people.
It's so difficult, you know, it doesn't get it doesn't get much easier. I still have a lot of trust issues. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I'm also blessed in that I am not going alone. I will have an amazing team of documentarians going over with me to document this ascent so that I can really focus on my body and really focus on the task at hand. And that's exciting in and of itself. My director, Edward John Drake, he is taking a break from his projects with actor Bruce Willis that he normally works with quite
Wow.
often. And he's going out there with me to ensure that this is documented with the utmost care. And
Wow.
obviously there's like filming contracts and stuff like that. And it sat in my inbox for, a good week and a half because I'm just, I don't know how to trust. I'm sorry. I don't. It's very difficult. I'll be quite honest with you. I'm very questioning of anybody that comes into my life. I want to know what your intentions are. I want to know that you don't have any ill intentions towards me or my family. Just one big bucket of trauma going forward. But the way I look at it, the people that are that elevated type of person are going to understand and recognize like this isn't a personal thing. This is her trauma speaking. And they're going to see through that and recognize like I'm really just a kid trying to do great things in the world. And everybody has their issues. And you begin to wonder if you can even trust yourself because you at one point thought you were a good judge of character. And whenever it happens on a repeated basis, it really gets under the skin after a while, So.
Wow. Well, I think you're incredible. I think you're brave and you're strong and you're courageous. And, I'm so thankful that you're putting your trust in certain people that are helping you to elevate your life, and helping you to achieve these amazing feats that really will inspire other people to believe that they can do great things too. And I think that I wish you could see you as I see you and as a lot of other people see you. And, maybe one day you will, but in the meantime, you just keep doing those amazing things because it's mind blowing. And I have nothing but pure admiration for you. It's astounding. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And I know my audience is going to be blown away by your story and feel the same as me, and have great admiration for you and great respect for what you're doing, not only for yourself, but for the world, and to encourage others. So I feel so honored to have spent this hour with you.
No, I feel honored to have been a guest on Get Off the Bench. So thank you very much for inviting me, Carrie. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. All right. Well, good luck with your climb, and I'm going to follow and hope to see some amazing pictures. And I'm sure I'll see some of you absolutely buggered. But
yeah, it's going to happen.
You'll post the truth. I know.
Yep. There will be an entire documentary about this is sent out in 2022. So
that will be fantastic.
It's going to be interesting. That's for certain.
Oh, well, good on you. Good on you for just moving forward and, ticking things off one at a time and just being incredible. That's all I can say. He's bloody incredible.
Well, that's all we can do, right?
Exactly.
Keep going.
Exactly. Well, I'll let you get back to tailoring your gear that I didn't even understand what the hell you were talking about when you said it. have a beautiful night and just thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you as well, dear. You have a good night as well.
You too. Thank you.
Take care.
See ya.